sometimes the truth reveals itself in the darndest places. In an old movie, for example, one you saw some years ago, forgot, and then, by chance, happened on it again to discover that times have changed, and movies too, but certain things never change. They just cost more. Here's what I mean. Remember Eddie Murphy 20 years ago in The Distinguished Gentleman? That's the term by which members of Congress address each other, no matter how disreputable their conduct. Murphy, a con man disguised as a waiter, is about to fleece the host of a swanky party when he overhears this conversation between a big-time energy executive and a veteran congressman who wants to retire.
Sure. Yeah, well, look, Jeff, you can't retire. But if I retire this year, I get to keep $1.3 million that's left in my campaign fund. It's called the grandfather loophole.
All right, Jeff. I got it. Come here. There's this small software company that's about to go through the roof. Now, what you do, you buy a few $1,000s worth of stock options. It's going to bring in $500,000 easy. That's just for openers. What?
If you put it like that, I suppose I have a duty to continue my career in public service.
Duty.
Fate intervenes, the congressman dies of a heart attack, and Murphy gets himself elected in his place. At a Washington dinner for freshman members of Congress, he begins to learn the ropes from the lobbyist Terry Corrigan.
Say, could I host a Welcome to Washington fundraiser for you down my law firm on K Street?
Absolutely.
At $500 a head, you could pick up 20, 25 grand to help you get started.
And how much of that are you going to get?
Doesn't come off the top. Down the road, I'll bill each of them $500 an hour whenever I take you to lunch.
You know, Terry, you and I are going to be so close.
Soon he's making a beeline for the honeypot.
I'd like to do more money for you, but first I've got to get your positions on a few issues. Now, where are you on sugar price supports?
Sugar price reports. Where should I be, Terry?
It makes no difference to me. If you're for 'em, I got money for you from my sugar producers in Louisiana and Hawaii. If you're against them, I got money for you from the candy manufacturers.
You pick. Terry, tell me something. With all this money coming in from both sides, how could anything possibly ever get done?
It doesn't. That's the genius of the system.
Now in the good graces of a powerful committee chairman, he joins the shakedown of a corporate executive who wants a favor from Congress.
7 figures? I suppose $1 million isn't too much to insure against losing $5 billion.
Now you're talking.
But how can I funnel this kind of money to you?
If that's what you want, we can find a loophole. No one will see your fingerprints.
No one will know?
No one will know. Olaf's just making a contribution as a patriotic citizen. And in return for that, he's getting...
Good government.
Exactly. Little access, that's all.
I'll not remind you of how the movie ends in case you want to see it for yourself, but I can assure you the revelations ring as true today as they did then. And no one knows this better than my next guest who wrote The Distinguished Gentleman. Marty Kaplan majored in molecular biology at Harvard, got a PhD in literature from Stanford, and went to work for U.S. Commissioner of Education Ernest Boyer and then with Vice President Walter Mondale. After Washington, he joined the Walt Disney Company as a writer-producer on such diverse projects as that Eddie Murphy satire and the Peter Bogdanovich adaptation of Noise is Off. After becoming a dean at the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism at the University of Southern California, he founded and now heads the Norman Lear Center, which studies politics, entertainment, and commerce and their impact on us. He's an expert on how big money and big media have coupled to create a Disney world of democracy. Marty, welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
You wrote The Distinguished Gentleman 20 years ago. Could you write it today?
Oh, God, it still is the same. All you have to do is add a couple of zeros to the amount of money, and the same laws still apply. It is fabulous and miserable at the same time.
Was Washington then, and is it now, the biggest con game going?
It is the biggest con game going, and the stakes are enormous. And the effort to regulate them is hopeless because the very people who are in charge of regulating them are the same people who are wholly owned subsidiaries of the lobbies that run them.
I have it on very good authority that a prominent Washington senator recently told a group of lobbyists in Washington, a room full of lobbyists, that they are the lifeblood of the city. And I thought, Kaplan has to do a vampire movie now, right?
Exactly. The connection between the legislators and the lobbyists is so intimate that it's not even embarrassing for a senator to say that in front of a room. The culture is so hermetically sealed from the rest of the country that it doesn't occur to them that there is something deeply outrageous and offensive and corrosive of democracy to admit that the money side of politics and the elected side of politics belong to each other.
You wrestle with this, you and your colleagues at the Norman Lear Center, and all the time on what this system is doing to us. So let me ask you, how did this happen in America? How did our political system become the problem instead of the answer?
Part of it is the nexus of media, money, and special interest politics. The citizens have given the airwaves to the stations. We own the electromagnetic spectrum, and for free we give out licenses to television stations. Those stations in turn use that spectrum to get enormous amounts of money from special interests and from members of Congress in order to send these ads back to us to influence us. So we lose it in both ways. The other day, the president of CBS, Les Moonves, was reported by Bloomberg to have said, super PACs may be bad for America, but they're good for CBS. I mean, there it is. This is a windfall every election season, which seems not to even stop ever, for the broadcast industry. So not only are they raking it in, they're also creating a toxic environment for civic discourse. People don't hear about issues. They hear these negative charges which only turn them off more. The more negative stuff you hear, the less interested you are in going out to vote. And so they're being turned off, the stations are raking it in, and the people who are chortling all the way to Washington and the bank are the ones who get to keep their hands on the levers of power. So one of the big reasons that things are at the pass they are is that the founders never could have anticipated that a small group of people, a financial enterprise, and the technology could create this environment in which facts, truth, accountability, that stuff just isn't entertaining. So because it's not entertaining, because the stations think it's ratings poison, they don't cover it on the news.
They don't cover the news.